Good morning. I'm sharing my reading from home, and I'm reading from The Golden Present Daily Inspirational Readings by Sri Swami Satchidananda. And this is my plan to do this for 365 days, started on December 21st, so it will end this year on that day. At least that's the plan at the moment. You never know what happens. Just have today, so that's why I'm just reading for today. And that is for February 9th. It's a short one. And the heading is, Your Whole Mind Should Be on It. When you do a thing, your whole mind should be on it. Success depends on your application of the mind. Without that concentration, it's a half-hearted job. Part of your mind will be here, part of it will be somewhere else. You cannot achieve success in anything that way. That is one reason for practicing meditation, to train the mind to stay focused on one thing at a time. Well, certainly that's one of the main maybe motivations or inspirations to practice meditation is that I know that it helps to focus my mind. And part of the practice is being able to bring yourself into the present moment by training the mind to focus on one thing. Typically, the mind is going to want to wander and focus on a bunch of different things. We tend to get lost in all the different thoughts that go through our mind through a day, something like, 30 to 50,000 thoughts in a day. We can't possibly take action on all of them, but sometimes the mind is trying to figure them all out and how to organize them and categorize them. And when meditation is brought in as a practice, and what it's done for me is it's helped to train my mind to have something to focus on, to stay with that particular thing. And in the practices that I've done, it's not like focusing on a task to get done as much as it's focusing on something more spacious, more generous, and not conflict oriented, but to meditate on my breath, to meditate on a Sanskrit mantra, to meditate on an affirmation. So in that way, it's a practice that directs my mind on something that can essentially uplift and energize my body and my mind. It can align the chakra system if you connect with that type of thinking, all the different energies and meridians in the body that can move us towards higher thinking and our highest self. So that type of practice has been really useful for me. It's something that I've been able to maintain for a while. And one of the, and what yoga leads up to is meditation. The practices of yoga, as most of us know it, oftentimes it's known as more as just the physical postures. Yoga is leading us towards a meditative, one-pointed practice that guides us to expanding the mind and making a conscious contact with that higher resource. It's not trying to make the body all, to fold up into pretzel shapes and do wild things that are possible with the body. It's doing those things to purify the body, sort of like wringing the body out, folding it and bending it and twisting it and scrubbing it basically, and doing all these things to the physical body, the anatomical body, for the joints, the limbs, the digestive system, the spine, all those things, to bring all that movement, because it's helping to purify by doing all those movements. When all those movements happen, we purify the body, we can sit in a more relaxed way. typically for most of us, sitting is not comfortable. Sitting for long periods of time in a meditative posture is not comfortable. Sitting at a desk has become somewhat comfortable for us because so many of us are having to do that in a day. But I heard someone say somewhere that sitting is, in terms of sitting in a chair, like in an office desk, etc., is the new smoking. It seems fine and no big deal right now, but more and more studies are seeing that that's where back problems, pain down the legs, digestive problems, all that kind of stuff, depression, is being linked to too much sitting. So even just sitting in a meditative posture, that can be very uncomfortable, because the goal of that is to be able to sit up as tall as you can, to have the natural curves of the spine be upright, to have the shoulders relaxed, the face relaxed. And typically, because our minds are racing, there's so many thoughts, there'll be tensions in the body, and we may hold those tensions physically. Maybe it's just in the right shoulder, and we don't even realize that we're sitting like this. And then we realize, oh, okay, I can soften that down. And maybe in our digestive systems, we're tightening up. We may not even realize that that's part of where we hold our stress. Could be in our jaw. There's lots of places. So moving through a practice that helps to connect us with where there's the tension, and then to help us release it, then to be able to sit more comfortably. It helps us not have to listen to the complaints of the body, but to move towards the helping to bring the mind into peace. And to bring the mind into peace, back to the beginning here, we've got to learn how to train the mind to be able to have a way to respond to all the different thoughts that are happening, to let go of the ones that aren't useful, to recognize there's so much distraction, and that if we lean into that too much, if we're pulled into all those distractions, we can lose sight of our center and what's important. And it's just very common. It happens. I know it happens to me. So I have to do a practice that brings me back into my center. Because if you keep, it's sort of that thing, if you keep leaning in and leaning into the distractions and leaning in, and boom, eventually you're going to fall and hit your head. So I do something that brings me back to the center and brings me back to being able to be upright and connecting with all the energies that help to uplift and really give me that sense of calm and that sense of connection, and ultimately universal connection. And when I'm in that place where I recognize we're all connected, we're all learning, just humbles me, and I feel more inspired to want to do the next right thing for myself, taking an action that's being of service rather than a selfless action. Rather than a selfish action that's only serving me, or one that's only bringing benefit to me. But the perfect act that I learned is to take an action in the world that brings benefit to at least one person and harm to no one, and that's including myself. All right, so that'll be my share for today. Thanks for listening in. Maybe if you feel so inspired and you might want to try some simple thing today that helps pull you away from leaning into those distractions, and if there's something you can do that helps bring you back to your center, whatever that might be for you, maybe it could start to be meditation, where you're noticing where you might be holding tension, that type of thing. See if you can begin something very simple today. And the most simple way, just taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And even in that moment, that's all I thought about. I wasn't thinking about what's next. Did I do it right? Just taking that deep breath in and deep breath out. So even try doing that today at some point at your desk somewhere. And if you're sitting at a desk, stand up, stretch your arms back. Just take a big stretch like that. And that can be good for your day too. Just those simple moments. All right, thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.